Greetings, YouTubers. This is your buddy Choppadong coming at you one more time with a huge slate breakdown for NHL. I represent the DFS Army. I'm a coach and contributor over there. Follow me at Choppadong on Twitter. Or, of course, you can become a VIP at dfsarmy.com, where we have coaches and contributors in all major sports that DFS covers. And we have a growing community of people that are learning the game, learning to build their own lineups. They are no longer buying lineups out there. They are taking their destiny, putting it in their own hands, and learning to become better players. So follow the description, the link in the description. Shoot me a like or subscribe to the channel if you get anything out of this content. I really appreciate it. That helps me, and that helps me continue to help you, which is the whole goal here. So dfsarmy.com, that's where I reside, and that's where you can find me and talk to me on just about anything DFS on a daily basis. So let's dive into a 12-game slate and really turbo burn this baby up. We've got the first game, Columbus and Washington. There is a line on that game. It's a minus 160 in favor of Washington. And the over-under total has been released. It's a 5. That tells me I'm not a real big fan of this game. A lot of people will be jumping on Washington. That's fine. But the way I look at it, Washington, they're starting to trend up a little bit in shots on goal, but they still rank 20th in the league. And they are trending down still in their 4-week fantasy production as far as fantasy points scored per game. They're below. Would you believe that teams like Nashville, Carolina, perhaps there was a real shocker in there somewhere. Ottawa, Montreal, Arizona all rank as more powerful fantasy teams right now than the Washington Capitals. That tells me these guys are dramatically overpriced. Get the hell off of them for a while. They'll turn it back on. They're too good of an offense to stay down for long. If you want to take shots on GPPs, by all means, feel free. But in cash games, get the hell off of these guys. They're not producing. Look, Ovechkin's price is down from like 8.2, 8.4 down to under 8,000 now. Why? Because they've been sucking. So anyway, they'll have their spurts. They'll have their games. I don't want to bash them too hard, but because they'll probably score 6 goals tonight with the way I'm ripping on them right now. I'm just telling you they're overpriced. Columbus is not in a great spot because Washington is a premier defensive team, and that tends to squelch fantasy production on the other side. I would stay off of this game outside of a couple of your cash game plays, like a Savard or somebody like that that's pretty cheap and's been playing pretty well lately. You never know. They may sneak one in. Holtby's not the rock-solid shutout goalie he was. Spent way too much time on that game. Moving on over to Tampa Bay and Boston. Boston's in a good spot. Both teams have lost 3 games in a row. The trend is actually down off of Boston. I'm not really sure why. This 195 is actually down to a 180. Still pretty solid in favor, of the goalie of Tuukka Rask, but Tuukka Rask has given up 13 goals in his last 4 starts. That may have something to do with it. But Vasil over here has had 4 goals against in his last 3 starts. So this game could be a little bit more of a shootout. It could be something to pay attention to. I do like Boston in the spot. I don't mind a couple of Tampa Bay players. It seems like Kucherov and Hedman are always factors in that offense when they get going. So bear that in mind. If this game shoots out, you might take a couple of guys from either side here. Scrolling down, Arizona and the all-powerful Arizona Coyotes that outrank the Washington Capitals right now. 5.5 total, minus 190 in favor of Florida. This game actually does favor Florida a little bit, even though Arizona owns the head-to-head. Last 10 meetings, Arizona is 7-2-1 versus Florida. Take that for what it's worth. If you look at Mike Smith and James Reimer, neither one are all that good, to be honest with you. Both teams allow a ton of fantasy points, so there should be some production coming out of this game, but neither one are very offensive-minded either right now. The one thing that Florida has going for it, Florida shoots the most pucks in the league right now over the last 4 weeks. They put the most pucks on goal, and Arizona still allows, top 5 shots on goal against. So that's a good thing for Florida for activity. We don't know if it'll translate into points. Carolina and Montreal. We got a 5 total, which makes me just kind of go ick. The minus 186 tells me Carey Price is possibly in play. Carey Price has been really good in his last 10 games or so. And head-to-head wise, Montreal owns the head-to-head matchup here with an 8-2 record in their last 10 meetings with Carolina. So that's all good for Montreal. I just don't know how high the scoring is going to be in this game. Last time I called out Montreal, they kind of let me down yet again. So I don't really know. With 11 other games to choose from, I don't know how high I'll be on any of these guys. But I would very much consider Carey Price. Pittsburgh is an offense I'm high on tonight. Go figure. Ottawa is actually not in a bad spot either, because Pittsburgh has gotten back a little bit more to their up and down ways. They're carrying only a minus 130 favorite here. 5.5 total suggests there will be some points scored. But Pittsburgh is kind of back to allowing shots against. There for a while they were suppressing those shots, and then they were going through their own little scoring slump 2-3 weeks ago. They've kind of gotten back to allowing shots against, which tells me they've opened their game up a little bit. They're a little more up and down the ice, and therefore, even though points are getting scored against them, look at what's happened to their offensive production. They're starting to trend back up towards the top of the league, where they had maybe fallen to 4th, 5th, 6th most productive team. They are now back up to this top 2 spots, right up there with Winnipeg and some of the more powerful offenses. So I like Pittsburgh here. I don't think that Ottawa is so defensive that they really scare me. In fact, Ottawa allows a lot of shots on goal, so there should be some activity involved. So I'm not really afraid of Pittsburgh at all. They are pricey, though, so you're going to have to find some value. But the beauty is, on a 12-game slate, you're going to be able to find quite a bit of value. Jumping over into New Jersey and Toronto. Toronto's on a back-to-back, and they carry the 190 favorite, but McElhinney here, he's not good. He's really not very good. That when I look at, he's kind of up and down. He's had a 1-goal game in there somewhere, but he's had some 4s and whatnot. That tells me you want a sneaky little play. I love Palmieri here in cash. Anytime that I can roster him, I look forward to it. It's about the only devil I typically take, but he's a pretty cash safe play in a lot of cases. Corey Schneider has not been good either. That's kind of a favored spot maybe towards the Toronto side of things. But Toronto's not as offensive as they were earlier in the season. They're trending down in both categories. So really maybe these rookies are tired. Maybe something's going on here. I don't really like any of the Maple Leafs tonight, even despite this 190 favorite that you don't see here on the screen, but I've looked it up. And I don't really like New Jersey either most times. So on a 12-game slate, I'm liable to look elsewhere. But I will tell you that Palmieri is a good cash play. If I had to take a Toronto Maple Leaf, I might take a Kadri, but he has not been playing all that well lately. Nylander's been good. Nylander's on like a 9-game point streak, so he's another one that I might take. But again, these are one-offs, not stacks. Calgary and Nashville, this game might have a little bit of explosive pop to it. The reason that I say that is Chad Johnson's not been good, and Nashville's been scoring points lately. Pekka Rinne's up and down, and Calgary's been kind of hot lately. So I don't really foresee this game blowing up and being a huge scoring game, but I certainly don't mind taking some risk and jumping into this game. I would look for steady production in this game for a couple of the cash plays. A Philip Forsberg, something like that. John Krok's always a nice little value play. Jossi's a great defenseman. Subban's been good lately. Ellis is solid. These guys, Brody's a cheap guy usually. Giordano's kind of a stud. You look up in here, and Gaudreau's been good. They've got a few guys that you can really roster up and down, but I'm not going to go stacking the skaters off of both sides of this game because I don't know for sure that it's going to blow up, but I look at it and it kind of makes me wonder if it might, just based on the goalies and the way they're playing lately. Over here on Philadelphia and Minnesota is honestly kind of in the same situation. Steve Mason has not been good lately. He's been allowing goals, and Devin Dubnyk has not been his normal self either. He's been allowing more goals than usual. So I'm not really sold on Minnesota coming out of their slump yet, but they're definitely set up to do so. They're a very powerful offense when they're rolling right. They're not quite rolling right, but I don't think they're off by a lot. And Philly gives up points. Philly can score points too. So if Minnesota's not on their game, this game could go 4-3, 4-4, and wind up in overtime. I don't really know, but if it does, I'm going to want pieces of it. Who would I look at? I don't know. Simmons is always a solid play. I'd look down here. Provorov had been good for a while, and not so much anymore. Gudas has been on my radar before. McDonald is super cheap. If he's playing well lately, getting you a couple of points per game, meaning shots on goal and blocked shots as far as activity points, I might roster him just to save money so I can get up into Pittsburgh or Chicago or somebody. Looking down here, Granlund's been good. Koivu's been good. They may not have been great lately. I'm waiting for Hansel to come back. Niederreiter, Pominville, these guys, when they come back, this is good value in that third line. So maybe tonight's the night, maybe not. I'm not going to trust it so much in cash, but in GPPs, fire it up, take a shot. I do actually like St. Louis tonight. The reason why is Vancouver has been brutal. Vancouver allows the most shots on goal and allows the most fantasy points. You don't get into a better situation than that. Sure enough, I said that earlier this week, and Chicago got beat by Vancouver. So it could happen again. Vancouver doesn't typically travel very well. But we play the odds in daily fantasy. We take our lumps, we take the variance, the ups and downs, and we keep rostering teams in favorable spots. Jake Allen's in an incredibly favorable spot. Ryan Miller gives up a ton of goals. He's got a lot of 4 and 5 goal games on his record. So St. Louis is in a good spot. Any of these guys are pretty much in play tonight. I don't know that I would stack the whole team up and down, but I know that I would have exposure to the game. Dallas and Chicago, same situation. It's your only 6 total on the game. Minus 225 is huge. Corey Crawford is in a good spot. Dallas has been a powerful offense in the past. They can score. Corey Crawford allows goals. I don't know that he's my favorite cash goalie tonight, but he's in a solid spot to get a win. Your usual suspects in Chicago are all in play. I don't know that I would take any Dallas Stars because when I look over at Chicago, Chicago allows the 25th most fantasy points in the league, which means they're a very, very tough defense. I know my jargon, my verbiage gets a little weird. That's why I try to explain it when I say it. 25th, the high ranking means you're at the bottom of the league in points allowed, which means you're a very, very good defense. So Chicago does not allow a lot of points. That alone scares me off of Dallas on a huge 12-game slate. Edmonton's on a back-to-back going into Colorado. Here's why you play other sports. If you play NBA, you know that when NBA teams go into Denver, they travel up into that altitude, and they usually are a little bit sluggish. We kind of stay off of teams as they visit the Denver Nuggets. I don't know if that has the same effect in hockey. I would suspect it would, being that Edmonton's on a back-to-back already. They're already a little tired. They come into the altitude. They might be more tired. So, honestly, I will take that chance and stay off of Edmonton tonight. I don't like Colorado anyway. I don't think they're a very good team. Their goalies, both these goalies are not very good. So the game could explode, but I'm not going to take the chance on it because I just don't know how much energy Edmonton's going to have. If a situation was different, I might really like Edmonton in a spot like this facing a backup goalie, but tonight I don't. Winnipeg is your most powerful offense in the league right now. They go into L.A. Tonight, and honestly, I kind of like both these teams as a hammer play. LA is a defensive-minded team. They don't allow a lot of shots on goal, but lately they've been allowing some points. Now, a lot of that's because Ben Bishop got blown up a time or two, and his offense wasn't supporting him. But Winnipeg allows points too, so the offense should be able to support the goalie tonight. So Jonathan Quick's a very solid goalie, but Winnipeg's a very powerful offense. In terms of all of the ratings up and down the scale and what I like to see, I don't mind this game. Now, again, you know me for cash. I'm not stacking games. I'm not taking the whole front line here or the whole first line or second line off of Winnipeg. I might take one, in Little here, and then I might pair him, with somebody else. Being that these guys are all power play stacked up, this is a little bit tough. This might be one of those situations where I totally divide and conquer. I might dip down into Lowry and grab the power play one and then throw him with Wheeler or somebody like that, so I get a little bit of overlap, but I'm on different scoring lines. And I might just do, somebody like Line A and Little. But I probably won't take big salaried guys out of this game, being that it's a lot of risk for a game that may or may not blow up. I don't know that the game's going to blow up. It might go 3-2. It might go 4-3. But the bottom line is there should be some stuff happening out of this game. You've got a couple of good point-scoring teams going against teams that are not as defensive, especially not defensive in Winnipeg, as they usually are. So that's a good spot for these skaters to be in. So where am I in summary really quick? Boston I like a lot. Pittsburgh I like them a lot. Toronto a secondary offense. Calgary and Nashville, I would watch that game. Philadelphia and Minnesota, I would watch that game. Those have some potential. St. Louis is a secondary offense that I kind of like a good bit tonight. Chicago, I really like again. So shocker, your primary offense is Boston, Pittsburgh, and Chicago. I know, newsflash. But in secondary offenses in Winnipeg and LA. So if you stick with those offenses, let's run them down one more time. Boston, Pittsburgh, Toronto, Chicago, St. Louis, Winnipeg, LA, and then maybe Calgary, Nashville, and Philly, Minnesota. You kind of narrow that down to about half of the teams, and that should stop. You just cross everything else off the list and go right to those teams to do your research tonight and put as many of those teams on your own fantasy team that you can, and you should do okay. Again, it's a highly volatile sport. You mix and match. You might get the wrong guys out of the right game, That just happens. So anyway, dfsarmy.com. I'm Chapadong. Come back and hit me up next week. We'll see you later.